Well, ladies and gentlemen, Monday morning blues. No. Not for Bitcoin. Now, listen, you're probably wondering what on earth is causing this rally to the upside. Well, it's not because Saylor's bought another 1,000 Bitcoin. You only expect him to buy Bitcoin. It doesn't matter if it's up or down. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, the US and China are in London and they are discussing trade talks regards to rare earth metals. This is a very big deal. Why? Because it's going to solidify where companies are that provide, electronic products that include those little metals that are rare, that come from the earth. And the extraction process is pretty difficult, but China pretty much holds the market for that. And this is why there is urgency to get this deal done and dusted. Hassan said this morning that it looks like everything is working out as it should and that we're not going to have any complications. And this is what's fueling this move to the upside. Now, investors are coming into the idea that, okay, we've got ourselves a trade deal, so let's just get back into the marketplace. We're witnessing a lot of flavor in Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin is up nearly 2% for the day. Happy days, and the market ain't even open yet. Question on our minds is the deal solid? Usually with the hybrid system, we anticipate a false move to happen at the start of the week. But the problem is this is being driven by news because it's anticipation. What's the deal going to say? The fact that China and USA are in bed together talking about a deal, that's bringing optimism across the board for the marketplace. What we're going to do today is just going to break it all down because we don't have any news announcements coming out this morning, but we do have the good old CPI data coming out this week. So I'm going to be preparing you guys for that and what we can expect with regards to that. Okay. Now, with that being said, let's get with the program. Let's break it all down and make sense of this madness. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it is a blue shirt, guys. We are favoring the blue today. I don't know. It's just the blue shirt that was available. Anyways, let's just break it all down. NASDAQ making a nice little flavoursome move towards that 21.8. It's been holding this 21,800 region for quite some time. They've swept the Asian session high. But this is what's hitting headlines. The talks, that's what we want. The market's like, okay, we've got so much uncertainty right now. Like, we don't know what to do. We're getting a little bit concerned. I mean, we've got articles like this that are coming out saying $37 billion has just left the marketplace, which, to be honest with you, if we just break it all down on where we are with the stock market, as it says over here, let me just bring this for you. What the hell? What are you doing there? No. What's happened? Here we go. No. Why are you doing that? Anyways, bruv, what's going on here? There we are. So NASDAQ has got 3 distribution days and the S&P has 2 distribution days. So it's not really too many days of selling. But according to that article that we've got $37 billion worth of just leaving the stock market, it's not really leaving it per se. It's actually just not coming in. And you can see from this chart over here, let's bring this up for you. You can see that we don't really have the volume saying that it's coming or going. And what we're looking for at the start of a week, should I say, is we want to really see Monday bring some flavor in the sense where accumulation is happening across the board. So by the end of today, if the NASDAQ is able to achieve a positive close on volume above average, then it will tell us that investors are starting to come back in and really plow into the marketplace. Putting it into perspective on the S&P as well, just understand that. Remember, the NASDAQ is way more volatile than the S&P, but the S&P does have weight in terms of the volume. This too has got 2 distribution days, one above average of volume, but another one that's below average. So that's not too bad, but we're not either here or there with it. It's just trailing upwards, but the volume's not there just yet. And a news announcement today regarding the trade deal will solidify that story and bring investors very excited about picking up risk. So here it is. It says here, US and China begin crunch trade talks in London amid simmering tension. So it is a very strenuous situation for investors because they don't know whether they should go into the tech market, because if China has got this problem with the US in terms of deals, in terms of trade, then why would you invest in a company that is going to be putting out a product that's going to be way too expensive for the consumer to pick up? Fundamentally, if people aren't spending money, then these companies aren't going to be getting the returns that their shareholders are anticipating. Now, with that being said, just to put it into perspective, to understand where we are in terms of money, we can go over to the euro. You can see euro starting to take a bit of a tumble to the downside. Why would that be the case? because the euro itself is being deemed as a safe haven. And if euro is going up, then it means that investors are picking up European stock. They cut their interest rate last week, so it's now cheaper to consume euro. At the same time, if the euro being so strong means that we've got good news coming for trade, then that means I can now exchange my euros to get myself some dollars and start planting it into the stock market. Go over to the dollar itself and you can see that dollar is sort of trying to make a nice little climb to the upside. It's doing relatively well right now. And what we've got right now is, as the dollar climbs, so does the stock market. And we just go over to the NASDAQ again one more time, just to put it into perspective. You see the NASDAQ is trying its hardest to make a move, and it's clear as day that they're holding price because they're anticipating an announcement regarding trade. Okay, so as much as you're seeing the dollar dominance moving and the euro moving, unless we see the NASDAQ making a move, it means that investors are on hold, because Forex will always be moving because it's perception of value. So what's going on right now is they're preparing themselves. They're loading up on dollars, and those dollars in principle are going to get put to work, which means that the stock market in principle should be climbing higher today. Now, going into the stock market, well, Tesla's been getting smacked left, right, and center. It is due to gap down at the open. But we go over to NVIDIA as well. We can see NVIDIA is gapping up at the open, getting so close towards its all-time highs, man. This thing isn't going to be stopping anytime soon. I'm expecting NVIDIA to clear out the 148, even towards and above the 152 zone. So that's something that I am going to be paying attention to with NVIDIA. But Meta is what's bringing the news, ladies and gentlemen. You can see here, Meta is lifting the marketplace because they are going to commit around $10 billion into AI. Now, we haven't really seen the market, or should I say investors, put that into perspective. But you can appreciate investors are still waiting to see if it's worth actually getting into Meta right now, given that the trade talks themselves, if they don't get what we expect, then the market might be like, okay, you know what? Yeah, we've got a deal with China, but the markup on that is going to then naturally go over to consumers, which means it's going to cost consumers more money. That means the earnings that are going to be coming out for these companies ain't going to be so great. I may as well unwind my stock and get out of that exposure just until I find out exactly where we are. Speaking of which, this week, ladies and gentlemen, it is a big week for data because we've got the CPI coming out. Now, here is the word. They're expecting inflation to go up to 2.5%. All right. That's not good. However, Bitcoin could be primed for a nice rally to the upside on the back of inflation. And this is where we would assume that Bitcoin would be acting as a hedge against inflation. So quite frankly, if we do get high readings on the CPI, why wouldn't investors go to Bitcoin? Oh, looking at Bitcoin's price action right now, you can see that it's doing all right. It's made a nice move to the upside, and it's been an aggressive move up as well. And the problem that I've got is the move is so high at the start of the day. We've got the New York session to come into perspective. Now, when we go into the order flow, you can see that Bitcoin has just eaten all these offers, which means that people are coming in and buying stock. They're buying Bitcoin. So does that mean it's done and dusted now, that the move's going to happen and Bitcoin's going to come to the downside? You've got to remember, if the market is reacting to news, this move to the upside on Bitcoin is anticipation. It's the retrace that's going to confirm to you whether or not it's going to sustain itself. Now, the market hasn't even opened yet. The day is still young. We don't have any news at all on what's going on, other than the fact that Japan Hotel Group wants to buy $5 billion worth of Bitcoin. And then, of course, Sailor's doing his thing, buying more Bitcoin. So it's just a thing. They're just buying it. Whether Bitcoin goes up or not is a different story. Now, going back into the idea of Bitcoin's price action right here. If those of you that are holders of Bitcoin and you're waiting to work out whether or not you should be holding on to Bitcoin, you roll it over to the daily time frame to put it into perspective to understand where you are. Now, what have we got? We have now had a successful breach above the 5 and 13 EMA. Happy days. What are we looking for? Well, look, guys, if Bitcoin were to just slump today, that is just shocking luck for anyone in Bitcoin, quite frankly. All right. The odds of Bitcoin coming all the way down and closing negative for the day are very, very slim, given the excitement of what's going on with the trade deal in China. However, don't say it can't ever happen, because it can. Look what happened last week when Bitcoin was like positive and it just took a shoe bag to the downside. Now, with it trading above the 5 and 13 EMA, holders would be asking themselves, is this what could be the rise, the retrace, the continuation out to the upside. What you've got to wait for is you have to wait until the daily candle closes just to get insight as to whether or not this is a solid move in Bitcoin. Because any news that comes out about this trade story, whether they fall through or not, I believe that if the talks fail, that would send everything down, in my opinion. Which means that could the market be telling us that they think it's going to fail anyway because everything's marking up now? Or is the market actually loading up and effectively getting into risk because they know it's going to be a good story for the marketplace? Well, let's just go over to the bonds market to understand this. First things first, during this trade story, okay, we've been getting a lot of safe haven assets and risk on assets. Safe haven assets as of day is euro, yen, and of course gold. Now, when you start your trading day, because we are in a macro driven environment, really benefits you to pay attention to that. Because if you don't, then you're not going to understand whether or not dominance in the dollar is going to continue higher or assets against the US dollar are going to continue higher, which is going to decide whether you are long or short on specific risk assets. So to put it into perspective, look what we got here. The euro itself is trading negative for the day, and it is starting to make a bit of a move to the downside. Happy days. What's going on? It's not because they've broken any trend line. No, it's nothing to do with a break of the trend line. That's not what's going on here. What's going on is they have got the idea that maybe the deal with China is going to be a good thing. So if that means that things are going to be okay in terms of deals with China, that means I may as well start going into the stock market. Now, the stock market itself does have around 265 Chinese-based stocks in the US stock market, which comes to around a sum of around $80 to $90 billion worth of market cap. That really does benefit investors if they know that there's going to be a deal in China, which means that I can start now going into those companies because things are going to be a little bit okay, right? So investors right now are getting out of euro, converting euros into dollars to go into the stock market, which is what we said earlier on. Now, with that being said, what we've got to look out for is where investors are in terms of the bonds market. If the bonds market is going down and the yields market is also trading negative, even though it is down, minus 0.27% on the 2-year, the 10-year is trading positive right now at 0.1%, and the 30-year is up nearly 0.48% positive. Kind of tells you that investors are still mixed and they're on the shelf with things. Fundamentally, we need to make sure that the NASDAQ sustains itself and holds these gains, which means that if the market is positioning itself to go into dollars to put into the stock market, then it's going to be a happy days move to the upside for the NASDAQ. To put it into perspective, where we at with the carry trade? Well, Aussie yen is trading upwards. And as long as Aussie yen sustains itself and we see Aussie yen climbing higher, then it's good. It's a safe bet to assume that the NASDAQ will also be trading higher for the day, because what they're doing is they're transacting on dollars, converting it over to the Aussie, then using the Aussie to buy stock. And then, of course, Aussie yen goes higher and then the stock market goes high. All you need to do is just add NASDAQ to this chart and you'll understand that there is a positive correlation between the two. If we just go and do that right now, you can see that you've got Aussie yen going up, NASDAQ going up, NASDAQ consolidating, Aussie yen consolidating. And out of the two, it pays for you to just say, right, let me see. If Aussie is consolidating, then I will wait until NASDAQ tries to form a structure to suggest maybe it's going to break out. If you see Aussie breaking out, there's a good chance that NASDAQ is going to follow suit and break out too, okay? So those of you that do actually consider that, just pay attention to that relationship because it all involves the carry trade principle. Now, quickly going over into Bitcoin right now. So a nice little bit of a move to the upside right now. We don't really have any market data that's coming out to say anything. It says here, Trump's going to discuss with Iran. So that's good news as well. He's going to be having a conversation over there. And other than that, ladies and gentlemen, to put it into smart money perspective, I have been saying that we need to see the blue line come down and hit an extreme. We're not just there yet, but it could suggest that the market's going to keep on climbing higher overall. So as long as this blue line keeps going down, dumb money in principle is going to keep coming into the marketplace, regardless of them actually pulling money away from it. It does show that smart money is coming out of the market and dumb money is going into the market, which I do believe we're going to see a big blow off top on the stock market overall. Just to have a look again, Just go out and look at the bigger time frames on the NASDAQ to put that into perspective for you. Yeah, we're primed for the all-time highs with NASDAQ. And a trade deal with China would solidify that. And then that's where we would understand how the impact of tariffs are going to be reflective on interest rates. Don't worry, we haven't forgotten about that. Expectations is 99.9% chance they're going to keep it at 4.25, 4.5%. Who on earth is betting for a rate of 4.5 to 4.75%? I don't like that, even though it's such an insignificant amount. The fact is that investors are like, there could be a possibility that they could actually increase interest rates going into the meeting that's coming in 9 days' time. Now, if you haven't liked the stream, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you do subscribe, because this FOMC is going to be the biggest live stream, and that's going to give us the big tell as to where we are with these interest rates. Going back into the interest rates, the expectation is that they are going to get 2 rate cuts. But if you're looking at the way they're betting right now, 83% expecting July, 4.25, 4.5%. So when are you going to give us the rate cuts? September is what they're talking about. September's not really giving me a good reading per se. It's more dominant to the 4 to 4.25%. But of course, if data comes out this week on Wednesday showing that inflation does go up, then there's a good chance that we're not going to get the rate cuts, which then effectively means that anything that has gone up from now until then in terms of risk on will more than likely be pulled back. So just make sure that you're taking into consideration any gains that you get from now up until the CPI data. Okay, cool. Now, anything else, ladies and gentlemen? Any questions that you have for me whilst we're looking at it? Just quickly go back into Bitcoin. I just want to have a look at what Bitcoin. Look at that. Wonderful day for Bitcoin so far. So good, guys. Going to the 1 hour time frame. There we are. Yeah, we've got lots of vector candles right now. There we go. The move is in 9 minutes time. So we're getting a lot of a lot of buy orders evenly matched on the S&P. So there's no imbalance on that data itself. Got quite a bit of sell side liquidity coming into play on the Dow. It would be selling right now with this information. Tino, can't trading be simple? You have to comprehend every data. Trading can be simple, and I comprehend all the data because it's going to help me understand what narrative I'm going to take for the day. Why is it important that I pay attention to the euro going down? Not because it's broken a trend line. No, that's got nothing to do with it. It's because there's optimism in the marketplace. And given that the euro has been deemed as a safe haven, I know that those guys are going to be like, hold on a second, if things are going to be all good for the US right now with China and trade deals, then I may as well take advantage of the fact that the dollar has been getting smacked and I can buy more dollars on the back of a strong euro. So euro comes down. That sets me up for the day to say, okay, I'm going to be favoring the stock market. I'm going to be favoring assets that are trading positive with the expectation of a trade deal coming into play. Okay. Like for Meta, Meta's going to be getting a little bit of flavor going into today, guys, because investors are like, okay, they're going to be committing liquidity. Happy days. And if you want to trade Meta, go to BTCC. You can join with the Traders Reality link. You get 10% bonus on first-time deposits. That's in the description. But when you do join it, all you need to do is go over to tokenized stocks and commodities. And you can trade crypto, of course, and you can trade Forex. But you go all the way down and you've got Meta right there. Where is it? Just had it. There you go. You can trade Meta right there and trade that news. When you're trading stocks, ladies and gentlemen, 9 times out of 10, stocks are going to be subject to changes in the macro environment, whether they're going to be investing in a new product, whether they're going to be hearing good news about trade deals or not. Okay. BTCC allows you to trade those logics. Like if you were playing Tesla, you'd be able to exploit Tesla on that sour relationship between Trump and Elon. What a joke that was. But I think you want to be paying attention to Coin because Circle IPOs come into play, and that brought a lot of interest for a lot of investors. And I'm telling you now, Coin is going to meet its match in terms of market cap. Circle is going to explode, in my opinion, okay? Because Coin doesn't really issue so much. Its business model's not relying on stable coins, but Circle's is. If we just go over to Coinbase's metrics per se, go into that just to put it into perspective for you so you can understand why I'm coming up with this idea. If you look at Coin right here, it says here that it develops a platform to invest and use crypto assets for retail users, institutions, and ecosystem partners. Now, if I'm correct, the Circle IPO, here we go. Circle, here we go. Look at that. It's just provides digital currencies and public blockchains for payments, commerce, and financial applications. So it's even though it's in the same business, okay, it's given that it's just come out, it's had a flipping storming IPO, okay, storming, and it's the only company that I think it's just going to absolutely violate Coinbase. It's really going to challenge it, you know, because what Circle isn't doing is effectively going to be something that they can do that Coinbase is already doing. All right. And that's already priced in. So, I mean, $24 billion in market cap, that is absolutely wild right now. Not bad. Not bad. You know, not bloody bad. Quickly go to Coin. There you go. 63 billion. IPO at 24 billion and Coinbase is at 63. You know, just under a third of the company's value on its first week. Like, come on, man. Yeah, it's that is evident that is going to be a very interesting one, to say the least. Okay, then. Right. NASDAQ. Here we go. Market is not even open and NASDAQ is still getting up to its old tricks. We could go over to oil for a second. Oil pulling back. When oil pulls back, stock market goes up. That's good news. Dollar dominance doing very well to hold out on the 1 hour time frame. And then, of course, USDT. Let's have a look at that. USDT is traded nicely to the downside. We've got this imbalance right here, which I don't like, but it is coming back. We've still got a little bit more flavor in USDT to come down towards this point. So got to be very careful with that. But I'd love to see USDT come down to 4.62 because then that would just be everyone just slapping into Bitcoin and making a run for it. Going into the high block to understand the liquidity. We got lots of short liquidations that have been eaten. And this is what I mean about traders, man. Like, look at this. Who the flipping hell has bought at that price point? 107,880. Jesus, guys, why are they buying up there? Let's quickly go and have a look here. Let's go and have a look. What we got? Yeah, we expect some bids to come into play. Quite a significant amount of bids are coming in, but nothing that I'd like call my mum and say, yo, mum, look, we got a bid order down here. I mean, it's, wait, hold on. I might call my mum. Hold on. So we got 105,800. We got a bid order for 44.9 million. That's only been in the book for an hour. That's going to be very interesting. Go down at 105,600. We got a bid order for 30.5 million. And then you got another bid order at 105,300 for 30.4. We go down again, 104,800. Right. So when you see this happening, what it's telling me is either investors have an expectation that Bitcoin is going to slump, or they're expecting that volatility is going to bring Bitcoin down for them to get an order filled and pick up. So when you see these orders, this, assuming that this is going to be in the book still, you can assume that if Bitcoin were to drop now, or at any point in the week, it drops towards 104,800 or 105,000, you can make the assumption by the order of order flow that is going to be a big support area for Bitcoin because there's activity. And if you've got, what was it, nearly 150, $200 million worth of Bitcoin being purchased at that point. Now, it doesn't seem like it's a lot in the grand scheme of Bitcoin's market cap, but look at what's going on there. This is going to be the reason as to why Bitcoin could sharply drop and then instantly reverse back up. And where have you seen that? You saw that happen last week with Bitcoin making this sharp move to the downside and then instant reversal back up again. Just keep an eye out on vector candles that come into play when you start seeing that thing happening, because I can guarantee to you down at this area here, there was a lot of people buying Bitcoin, equally wanting to sell it as soon as they could, which is what's led this move to the upside. Let me just go back to that zone just to put it into perspective. I mean, look, do I need, wow, NASDAQ. What do I need to say? Here we go. We had a lot, 11 million down there, and it's just taking flipping forever. But anyways, never mind. All right, then. Anything else, ladies and gentlemen? Tino, why are you mentioning the name? I'm not mentioning his name in Lord in vain. I am not, please. Have you ever noticed how the move in 30 minutes before the brinks is generally a false move, fully recovered pretty quickly? Yeah, you're always going to get that. And it's always that's why they call the brinks the money trade. Okay, because it's going to tell you whether or not the market's going to go in one direction against the next. But remember, you're waiting for news about China. That's what you're waiting for. Okay, so just be very careful with today. Don't be this dude. Don't be that guy. You want to start buying up here, just be careful. You're going to have yourself a very, very good liquidation point, even though I don't think you should encourage using your liquidation point as a stop, because if you're using a liquidation point as a stop loss, it's game, set, and match. You're not built for the game. You have to have liquidation point, which is an event that is unlikely, but it's going to be a point where you say, right, God forbid anything happens, at least I've got a liquidation point. Have a stop loss above that. Don't aim to blow your account just because your liquidation point got hit, okay? Tino, crash is starting this week. MFI indicators called all tops in the daily on SPY. Look it up. Okay, the MFI. Let's hold on a second. Let's just put that into perspective. Market's not even open yet, and NASDAQ's doing all this flavor. MFI. Here we go. Let's put that into perspective. No, it's not on here. No. What am I doing? Look, I know what you're making reference to, but what you've got to understand, it's driven by so many factors that can make investors feel positive about something or negative about something, okay? So that's why the market's not getting traction. All I'm saying to you is this. Pay attention to Aussie yen, because if Aussie yen's going up and it's showing strength to go up, then there is a strong chance that NASDAQ is going to keep on moving up. Okay, here we go. NASDAQ's just doing some wild move right now. Some news has come in. Hold on. Market is open. Wait. Market is open. NASDAQ's making a bit of a move. Aussie yen should be following suit. Hold on. Come on. Where's Aussie yen? Aussie yen's trading 0.23% for the day. It's at 94,920. There she goes. She's marking up. So we could only make that assumption that dollar yen is pulling back, but it's going up a little bit. Gold is holding. Tesla is down. Nvidia is up 1-2%. Here we go. So Nvidia will be fueling the move to the upside if she sustains it. So yeah, just be very careful with your trading today, guys. Bitcoin's pulling back ever so slightly, but they're going to be expecting the news for the trade talks in China. Now, with that being said, guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's live stream. And to put it into perspective, just make sure, hit the like, subscribe, all of that. But just be careful with this trade story because it's going to be news that just hits the market. So if you are waiting for that, just be careful in case they do some terrible moves up and down. Ideally, wait till that data comes out, and then you'll have better traction at trading the market without any surprises. All right? Mad love and respect, guys. And I'll be tuning into you all later on. Peace.